we are recruiting 24/7, but knowing your numbers is what allows you to make those future decisions, brutally honest. That's when you kind of got to just fall on the sword, admit your mistake and go, look, I've made a mistake here.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle.
Before we get started today, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell.
Welcome to The Business Game, where we dive deep into the real stories behind running a business and the tech that powers it. I'm Jamie, and with me is Dan, and today we're pumped to introduce a true game changer in digital marketing.
That's right, Jamie. Our guest is Peter Curran, co-founder of Digital Surfer, a Gold Coast powerhouse driving jaw-dropping results like 3,400% call increases for clients. From his days as detective to scaling a business with his wife, Renee, Peter's got the grit, smarts, and tech-savvy strategies to inspire every business leader out there.
Get ready for raw insights on bouncing back fast, building unstoppable funnels, and why progress always beats perfection. Let's dive in with Peter Curran. This is The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle. Right, so Peter, we've got you in today to have a chat with us on The Business Game. So to start this off, why don't you tell us who you are, what you do for work, how long you've been going, things like that. Where do we find you?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Peter Curran, owner of Digital Surfer. We're a digital marketing agency who specialise in websites, paid search and SEO. And I guess whilst there might be some level of complexity about what we're doing, I think the best way to explain it is that if you're a business who needs to be found on Google and that's a problem for you being found, then that's the problem we solve.
How do you find getting straight into the Google thing? Yeah. Because from experience, there's been times I've wanted to smack my head against a wall trying to deal with it. How do you find navigating that on a daily basis? I guess it's a learned, thing that you've gone through and you probably know it inside and out. But for people that are starting this journey, and they're starting to, why aren't we coming up in the search engines and stuff like that? And then going into Google and then trying to work out all of that, it's very overwhelming.
It can be. And I can understand where businesses who are newer in their journey, whether they be just trying to teach themselves Google or alternatively an agency who are trying to grow and understand Google a little better and understand why Google's making so many changes so frequently. I think it's important to remember that Google's trying to constantly make their platform, their search engine better.
Yeah.
So they're trying to weed out what we might call black hat SEO or black hat activities. So whilst the constant changes can be frustrating, I completely get it. And at some level, we can get frustrated as well. They're doing it with the best intent of their search engine to try and give the user the best possible result. So I think instead of getting frustrated and saying, why are they constantly making change? The best way to go about it is to know that the constant change is going to continue to come. Embrace it. Get better at attending the right events, being on the right forums, etc. Mixing with the right people who know where to get that right info, to know where it's coming. And then to once a change has been made, understand why. Something we do internally is every Monday morning at 9:30 we have our office meeting, the 12 of us, and everyone will, it's a routine thing, so everyone knows what's coming. Everyone will share a win, a loss, or a lesson from the previous week.
Yeah.
So typically every Monday morning, out of the 12, there's always at least 3 or 4 in the team at minimum. Every Monday morning in our round table, we'll say, hey, last week Google this, I learned this. And it might not be just Google. It might be kind of something on socials or LinkedIn. Or we're pretty active on LinkedIn, so it might be typically LinkedIn for us. It's a focus. So we're always sharing those things. And we just use an internal communication system called Slack. And a lot of that will just get shared in the general feed. Mm-hmm. So someone might cut and paste an article or a link or whatever the case may be and say, hey, guys, this is worth reading. So I think for us, it's just part of doing business. We know we've got to stay on top of it. That is, we do a little bit on Bing now. But, Google's the primary. Bing are trying to get traction.
Yeah.
And they probably will. They'll get some market share from Google, but I'm not sure how much. Depends how much they're prepared to throw at it. but we're just embracing the change. We're kind of just enjoying it instead of getting cranky now, because some of the best lessons have come from some of that change. So you can have, say, it's an SEO campaign as an example. If it's going really well, that's great.
Yeah.
And you've learnt over time across many industries and many campaigns what's going well, and that's great. But all of a sudden, if there's an algorithm change and everything goes bad, and a client's ringing up saying, "Hey, I haven't had a phone call for 2 weeks," and we're like, "Oh no, SHIT, what's happened here?" Well, that's where the lessons come from us as the agency as well, to be better prepared for it, to make sure that we're circling in the right forums, groups, etc., that we know that some of these bigger changes are coming. And at some level, if any of our clients get hit really hard, well, that's our bad.
Yep.
That's bad work on our behalf.
Yeah.
We should give ourselves a kick in the bum for that. Given, like, we're not 12 weeks in, we're 12 years in, we should be seeing these things coming.
Yeah.
And we certainly have things in place to make sure that we're on top of that. So I guess there has been instances over the years, though, when certain industries will get hit hard, and you do see some rankings fluctuations. But the bigger lesson then internally as the agency is, well, how quickly do we turn this around? If a client site gets hit and it drops in rankings, and they're of course a bit cranky because they're relying on good rankings for phone calls, and that's a primary source of business.
The opposite is someone a small business doing their own SEO.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't understand the algorithms. They don't understand the complexities in terms of SEO and Facebook and socials and Bing and the whole thing. So I guess you specialize nothing else but that, and that's why small businesses and medium-sized businesses should come to you. Or do you get into bigger stuff as well? Or
we have some bigger businesses as well that are a little bit more what we might call, say, your enterprise campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they might have a national audience, so Australia-wide, and a handful who target international audiences as well. It's primarily that medium size and moving into some of the larger. But to go back to what you're saying, about the real small business who are trying to do it themselves, that's a tough game, to be honest, when you wouldn't even know.
You can just imagine there'd be an algorithm change on the Monday morning.
Yeah.
They wouldn't make for 2 months. They'd be spending money, not making a difference. And this is where they should be coming to someone like you and saying, "Hey, help, please."
Yeah. Look, even if it is just for some foundational stuff, there are some businesses that are pretty early on in the journey, and they'll want to do it themselves, and they might be forced to do it themselves because of budgetary constraints. We all get that. Everyone's been new in business, and even now, we're still there's budgetary decisions to be made all the time. I don't think it matters how big you are in business. BHP are still making budget decisions every day. So something that we say to people is, if you have to do it yourself, it's worth investing in your business and getting someone like us to at least do some keyword competitor research for you, to be saying to you, if you're going to go and write your own content, at least be writing it around the right keyword search terms. If you can't pay us or a content writer from anywhere to write your content, it's okay, but have a clear keyword strategy and understand some simple things. And a lot of people will say, "Look, I'm a good writer and I've written some blog content." We'll say, "Okay, great, that's fantastic." And a lot of times some people they write quite well, academically, grammatically, all that sort of thing. But the problem is they're writing then about topics that they like and they're knowledgeable on, but it doesn't necessarily mean the masses out there are looking for what they're online, looking for what they're writing about. So you kind of say, and they're like, "Oh, it's not really working." So, well, yeah, that's right. There's no strategy behind it. So if there was no research and no strategy, you just went a bull at a gate, and good on you. A lot of them, their enthusiasm's 11 out of 10.
Yep.
But the strategy's wrong. So it's kind of doomed from the beginning.
So something that you implement in your business and you emphasize quite a lot is speed recovery.
Yep.
Talk us through that. What do you mean in regards to speed recovery, and why should other businesses go, "Yeah, okay, that's probably a great idea"?
One of my favorite topics, favorite points of business. I could actually talk about this point for a day, so I've got to try and get the point across and be brief. It's the ability to move on very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I guess one scenario I'll give, there's two separate scenarios. First one is, as a business owner, you lose a good client, your best client, high and paid client. you need to be able to assess that, get out your anger, frustration, but you need to move back on, move on, and quickly. You can be cranky about it, and maybe you should. Maybe it's your fault as the business, or maybe things happened and they were going to leave anyway and it was beyond your control. But as an owner, when an incident like that happens, that is when you need to display good leadership, and you need to be able to assess that quickly, but move on. So something that we've learned is, as the business owner, and we're a husband and wife business ownership, Renee and I, so then there's 10 team members underneath us. They need to see us being pretty equal all day, every day. So on my worst day, I've still got to be here. And on my best day, I've still got to be here. They need leadership. Now, not that we employ a team of kids, but you still need to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And that means behaving and performing at a certain level all the time. So I can't afford to behave poorly because a client leaves. So I need to practice speed recovery, which is the ability to accept that, assess it, but move on quickly. And here's a really great example of where we have got a hell of a lot better at this. I'm going to call it about 6 or 7 years ago, a team member left. We were down in northern New South Wales on a holiday in our caravan. Someone rings up and says, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'll be gone in a week," or something. Renee and I made the mistake of allowing that to ruin our weekend away with the kids. We lost the plot. That's it in summary. Fast forward to September of last year, 2024. Renee was away with our girls, but I was still at home because our son had a soccer carnival. She rings me at 6:30 on a Friday night and says, "Hey, so-and-so has just resigned, leaving in a week." Oh, okay, geez, that's a bummer. By 6:30 the next morning, Renee had gone to a local cafe, had a job listed online, had listed that job on LinkedIn and any other platform you can think of, and had written to that employee and said, "When I'm back in office next week, we are meeting at this date and this time, and this is what you will give me for handover for the new person." So 6, 7 years ago, we just lost the plot. Our world ended. We behaved badly. Not ruined our kids' holiday intentionally, but we just weren't there.
Yeah.
We were present with the kids, but not present, if you know what I mean. Same thing happens, as I said, September last year. Renee just went, "This is not ideal, but here we go."
That's the thing, though, isn't it? You can't change the past. You can't change what's happened, but you can change what's going to happen in the future.
And you still need to then sit down with that person who's left and go, "Hey, look, good, bad, indifferent, please be honest and tell me, did you get a better opportunity? Moving away? Like, what happened? Did we do something bad, etc.?" You've still got to have that exit interview and all that sort of thing, and work out, well, can we do something better as owners? But again, we could have sat around kicking stones and said, "Oh my God, so-and-so's leaving. This is the worst thing in the world." And sometimes you can still be upset that someone leaves, but you've got to say to yourself, "I've just got to move on."
No dwelling.
I'll sit down with them and talk through it, as we always do. But you've just got to be able to say, "Look, I've got to take a deep breath. I've got to accept that this has happened. It might be my fault. It might be their doing. Who knows what? But all that kind of doesn't matter. They've said they're leaving. They've made up their mind. I need to replace them because business has got to continue. And again, I need to provide a good example to the rest of the team, and they need to see good leadership. They don't want to see that someone leaves and I sit in the corner and cower and go, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" There always has to be that plan B, and you've got to go to that plan B quickly. So, speed recovery is that ability to just, and I'm not saying that you've just got to let it go instantly. Sometimes things happen that are really serious and can really knock you and you're off your game. But you kind of still got to put a time in the calendar and say, at 3:00 today, that's it. I'm going to let it go.
Need to compartmentalize that and move on with the business.
I'm going to be cranky all day, and whether you should or shouldn't kind of doesn't matter. It's an individual thing. There's no right or wrong. But you can say, "I'm going to be cranky till 3 today, but at 3:00, that's it. I'm letting it go. I'm taking the deep breath. I'm going to have dealt with it." Speed recovery.
So do you have any sort of advice to give other business leaders on how they can, I guess, pivot in that moment where they do have to compartmentalize? Like, Have you had any tried and tested ways where you're like, okay, this is what works for me because this is going to continue letting me be the leader I am, elevating my team, even though we're going through this tough spot at the moment?
I don't know how to answer that. I think for us, we're just at a point, it has literally just become second nature.
Yeah.
And it's not even just
So
a
it's a
business.
learned behaviour.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. In and out of business. This was actually taught to us in more of a sporting analogy. We had a coach years ago who was a coach of athletes at the Institute of Sport in Canberra many moons ago. And he explained to us the biggest difference at times between certain athletes and why certain athletes made it on a world scale and were successful and others didn't was typically not ability. It was just mindset. It was headspace. So it was taught to us in that sporting analogy, but converted into the business analogy, and we've just kind of taken it on in life as well. Renee and I will just constantly say to each other, speed recovery. And I guess it's just become so ingrained in the way we live our lives that, doesn't matter what happens. I could walk out the front and I've got a flat tire in the car. I'm like, oh, it's a bit of a bummer, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. This is so minor.
Yeah.
So whether it be a minor nothing or a pretty major thing, we've just got so used to that. That's just a philosophy we live by. It's not even just a business philosophy.
I don't know about you, Dan, but I quite often, and I say this to my daughter as well and my partner and whatnot, and I'm very much, I think, okay, is this going to matter in 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months? How big of a glitch is this particular thing in my life? And really, when I boil it down, I'm like, yeah, it has pissed me off right now. Yeah. But it's not life altering. Not if you have that plan to back you up.
Accept what's happened.
Yeah.
Learn from your mistakes and plan, move forward.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the bigger the glitch, if we put it that way, possibly the greater need to be able to move on quicker as well. The consequences could be, I don't know if drastic's the right word, but the consequences could be big, but still, regardless, as you've just said, you can't change it. So regardless of how I behave now in 1 hour or 3 days, that incident has still happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not kind of a thing where we say, look, actually forget about it. It's possibly more just, look, deal with it and accept it. And it might be something that you've then got to deal with. If it is pretty big, it could take weeks or months to deal with it because something major could have happened. Yeah. But you've kind of still got to move on. Yeah, look, possibly it's fair to say sometimes easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely.
But we've just felt it serves us well, kind of primarily as a business thing, but we've just turned it into a life thing.
Yeah.
I think this is a good segue into hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah. I'm interested on your perspective here because I know I've worked for companies that have done the same thing, and I've worked for companies that have done the polar opposite. And there is a very different dynamic in morale within the office from one to the other. So what's your take on hire slow, fire fast?
We, I guess, operate that way because we've learnt some hard lessons. Yep. And almost as recently as in the last 2 or 3 years, if someone is leaving or if you've had to say to someone, hey, it's not really working out, maybe it's in the best interest of all that we don't go this way anymore. And typically we found if you say that to someone, they're kind of like, yeah, thank God you said it. I wasn't really enjoying it here either, you know. And it can just be a very mutual, there's no dramas at all. Everyone's kind of relieved. What we found though was when someone's left, whether it be of their own willing or a mutual kind of conversation, like we just said, to say, hey, it's not working out, they leave and instantly you replace them. You just go, boom, advertise a job, first people that arrive, 2 people arrive first day, you just hire one of them. You go, they were the best on the day, cool, you just hire one and they start 2 days later or a week later or kind of whatever the case may be. We've learned some hard lessons from that. We've kind of found we've hired for the sake of hiring. Someone came along and they were probably acceptable, probably had the skill set, and then we've discovered they probably weren't the right fit, but we just made a decision too quickly. So instead of taking a deep breath, using that time period when someone's left as an opportunity to not necessarily reset, because you don't necessarily need to reset, but to think at that higher level, to get out of the office and have what we call a conversation where, as owners, we're not in it. We're out of the office, away for the day, looking at our business in what we call that helicopter view, looking down on it and saying, this is a time where maybe the things can change. Maybe we need to change a role. Who could do what? So as an example, when someone left in September of last year, when I told you that was that kind of speed recovery example, we decided then, you know what? Maybe we should not just advertise someone to fill a paid search role. Maybe we should advertise to get someone who can do both paid search and SEO. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the time, because we've got, realistically, everyone on the team is good at one and has a pretty small knowledge on the other. Yeah. And we kind of went, you know what? Maybe it's time to get someone who's, it's probably impossible to get someone who's 50-50 in terms of their ability in both. Yeah. But if you can get someone who's even 60-40, yeah, even 70-30 for that matter, because when the others are kind of 95-5, yeah, if you get someone who's 70-30 or 60-40, that person that's valuable. Yeah. You know, because people take leave and holidays and all sorts of stuff. Like we all know, life just gets in the way. Mm-hmm. So that was a time where we actually then just found ourselves an independent contractor who came in and helped us out for a short period of time. And we just sat and watched. I said, let's just see how this plays out for the next few weeks. So we didn't advertise a job straight away. So that was kind of that whole hire slow. If you're going to do that though, you kind of you've got to have your plan B and your backups. So I guess over time though, we're fortunate. We've met a lot of people, a lot of business owners. So you know a lot of freelancers, you know a lot of even other agencies, yep, where you can just say, can someone help me out for a week? So we've just really learned, take a deep breath. Even if you feel the need to go and write a job ad and get it ready to go, to be prepared, we'll do it. But if you can, if there's others in your network, whether it be freelancers, contractors, who knows what, yeah, you may just need to go and hire someone that day. Like, I get it, right? Your workload might be out of control. You might have been at capacity beforehand, and then when someone leaves, you're way beyond capacity. We've just learned, I guess we're fortunate. You've been doing it long enough now. We just take a deep breath and say, you know what, we're just going to sit and chat about this. Let's look at this at that helicopter view where you're not in it and you're not under the pump and you're not heavy breathing. You're thinking very logically and strategically and saying, what am I going to do? I might move some pieces of the puzzle around here, because I actually think now long term, this person leaving has opened my eyes up to the fact that we could do A, B or C. So hire slow would always be our advice.
I like it. That's a really good one. Something I haven't really considered before in past businesses. But you get the wrong person in the wrong role, it ends up in a bigger mess, and you've got more to sort out.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, exactly
not to mention the cost of training someone.
Yes,
exactly.
And it's not something that I think most businesses, it's quite, I shouldn't say don't think of, everyone thinks of that, right? But it's quite often a bit of an oversight on how much actually goes into training someone, let alone training the wrong person.
Oh yeah, a drain on your time.
Oh yeah,
resources.
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. A drain in your kind of just your own headspace.
Yeah.
And I think the fire fast may be a little bit more self-explanatory. We're kind of the view, whether you've hired fast or not, if you've hired fast, got it wrong, hired slow, got it wrong, so be it. But again, if it comes to you've got it wrong and you know it, don't let it fester. Don't let it have an impact
becomes
on
toxic.
Yes, don't.
Yeah.
That's when you kind of got to just fall on the sword, admit your mistake, and go, look, I've made a mistake here. This isn't working. Have a chat with that person and just be brutally honest. Everyone appreciates honesty. I've never met anyone who doesn't appreciate honesty, and it's not working out for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
There's a fair chance that If we think as owners it's not working out, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they probably feel the same way. Private conversation, of course, respect someone's privacy and that they're just a person as well. And, sit them down and say, what are your thoughts? Well, this is what we're thinking. And, and what we've found is it's better to just, the quicker that happens, the better. And literally like, look, if we've made a decision today that we're going to leave, if you haven't been here that long, can you spend the rest of today hand over sorting out what you need to? But maybe we just finish it today. Like if we've ripped the Band-Aid off, that's it. Let's do it. So again, it served us well.
For other sort of founders or CEOs or GMs, whoever the decision maker is in regards to teams that are listening in, and they're struggling to delegate to more knowledgeable teams, so they're struggling to hire and delegate that out. What's one mindset or shift that they could do, or a tech solution that they could help with that delegation? Because, and I will put my hand up, that I am the worst in regards to delegating stuff. I'll just be like, oh, it's fine, I'll do it. You guys, it's okay, I got this. And then all of a sudden I've said that, 20 times that day, and I'm still working at 9 o'clock at night. And they absolutely are qualified to do what I've said. It's okay, I got this.
Yeah. I think you've almost got to learn that the hard way. You shouldn't, but let's face it, we all have.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to scale and scale fast, you just have to accept the fact that you've got to delegate. When we interview people now, like we are recruiting 24/7 every day of the week. If someone calls me and says, are you advertising? Yes, I am. I might not be a job ad out there, but every day of the week, every day. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. I'm always looking to build a team. So that is something we've learned, because you could interview 6 people and they're just not the right person in terms of, for whatever reason. The reason they're not right doesn't really matter. But yeah, you need to have your eyes and ears open all the time. And you might think, what, I don't need to hire anyone for 3 months. Well, particularly if you're in the digital space and you get 1 or 2 multinational clients, some of those might need 1 employee almost full-time on the campaign.
Yeah.
So if you want to scale fast, you need to have those resources at your exposure and almost have people on your reserve list that you can call to. So you need to at least be willing to have that understanding that I need to be in hire mode all the time.
I guess it's also about delegating the right tasks to the right people as well.
Yes.
Using their skill set.
So we've learned you need to be, and it's easier said than done again, you need to be hiring people who actually know more than you. So when we've sat down, I don't know how many interviews we've had where Renee has interviewed someone about SEO and she'll ask them some questions and they know their knowledge is reasonable, we might say. We might call them a 5 out of 10. When she gets into some nitty-gritty technical stuff, if they don't know, we're not dismissing that straight away, but we're saying, okay, no worries, I know where you're at, and that's cool. It is what it is. But if we need someone, if you've got someone who's at a 9.5, 10 out of 10 level about SEO who's already on the team, well, great. But if we're looking to hire someone who can come in and hit the ground running and their knowledge needs to be 9.5 out of 10 at an absolute minimum on SEO, well, when the person presents at a 5 out of 10, well, we can't hire them on that particular occasion. We need to be hiring people who know more than you. So Renee's level of SEO is brilliant. It's as good as anyone I know. But if she continues to get better and better at SEO, that's not going to grow our business, Another great line I've learned is what got us to here won't get us to there. So if I decided to go and learn website development and know it more from the guys on our development team, that's wonderful. But I'm not going to grow our business by me learning more about websites. I need to become a better business owner all day, every day. And I think that's what every business owner needs to keep in the back of their mind. Like if whether you're in the digital space or regardless of the space you're in, you're a subject matter expert in what you do. But if the business is relying on you to grow, you've got to be prepared to let go, because time goes fast. Like, where's the last 12 years gone? I've got no idea. I've got teenage kids. Where did that go?
Yeah, where did those babies go?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you don't want to wake up X amount of years down the track and go, I knew I should have done it, but I just couldn't let go. You've just got to take that leap of faith and say, I've got to get some other people involved. Like, you want to leverage your time and free yourself up. You just have to get yourself in that mindset that I can't do everything. And
I'm listening.
yeah.
I'm listening hard.
Yeah. So sometimes that can come about from, and I kind of, Renee would share this far better than me. She was unfortunately born with the perfectionist gene.
Yep.
And I'm the way other end of the scale. So we do kind of complement each other and try and meet somewhere in the middle. But perfectionists don't get things done.
Yeah.
So progress over perfection.
Yeah.
Because whilst you're trying to get it perfect, we can then talk about this thing we call speed to market. So you could have, and this is maybe better advice if you're a startup and you have a certain product or so, and it is quite unique and could be revolutionary and game-changing, if you can't get to market because you're tweaking it, so that in your own mind it's 100%, you then get it to the market, and that takes you 2 years. You then get it to the market, and the market tells you there's no demand for what you've got. You've wasted 2 years of your life,
Yeah.
and who knows how much money you've spent.
Yeah.
And then you're mentally exhausted at the end of that and potentially broke in many ways. So you don't realise, but getting it to the market at maybe 80%, I don't know what the percent, there's not an approximate percentage that's correct,
Yeah.
but you've got to get that to the market, your product, service, whatever the case may be. And if you're going to sit around and worry about how pretty your office is and whether you've got nice business cards and T-shirts and all that stuff, that's rubbish.
Yeah.
Rubbish. I'm not hiring you because you turned up with a pretty shirt and business card. I want to know that you can do the job and get results.
Yeah.
I've got a problem, you're the solution. I couldn't care less whether you got your car logo done and...
So do you have an example with Digital Surfer?
Oh, jeez.
An imperfect launch? Yeah.
Is my research incorrect where you said launch your new website, just get the sucker live?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and part of that is that you'll be looking at your new site and in your eyes there's some imperfections.
Yeah.
But the masses out there, they don't know.
Yeah.
And particularly when some of your imperfections are things behind the scene that are not front-end visual on a website, but you're saying, oh, I know it doesn't do ABC yet. The audience is never going to see it. And if they do, they don't care.
No, they don't.
They're not looking at the pretties.
No,
they're
they're
actually
not.
looking at to try and make their mind up as to whether or not you can solve my problem.
Yeah.
This is a kind of transactional thing.
Yeah.
I've got a problem. Are you the solution? If you're not, I'll go to the next one. So if you're sitting at home behind closed doors getting it perfect, or in your eyes perfect, and then the market can still tell you it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And then that's a hard lesson.
Yeah.
So
And a timely one too.
yeah. The Digital Surfer website, we rebuilt that about 18 months ago. That was the first time in 5 years or something.
Opening up your website.
So whilst I'm no perfectionist, as I said, I was removed from that process because as the owner, I was still too emotionally attached. So they went ahead and did that, and it was pretty much finished and live, and I had no say because
Yeah.
I had to be prepared to trust that the guys in the team knew what they were doing, and they kind of knew how to build something that was modern for the current age. Renee had a bit to do with it, but there were plenty of aspects about that she didn't like when it was basically ready to flick the switch and out with the old and in with the new.
Yep.
And she had to take a deep breath and say, look, we need to get this to the market. We had a new marketing strategy, a bit of an overhaul. We had redone our own branding. We'd redone our offices. So we said, you know what? This has been so long overdue. It's not perfect. And will it ever be perfect? Because we all know you have to continue prioritising client work as well when they're paying you.
Absolutely.
So whilst our own team were doing this from a web development design and an SEO point of view, we still had to say, well, you've got to treat your own business as a client as well. But you still had to say to yourself, we can't keep putting the hours into this to get it perfect.
Yeah.
Because clients need results. So
Yeah.
the Digital Surfer website, current version, is a great example. I wouldn't know, but I would hazard a guess that Renee could create a list for you of 10 imperfections on that And she's
Yeah.
probably right. They probably are. But
yeah.
how much of an impact are they having on us on a daily basis? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and if she created a list and said, there's this, this, and this I don't like about it, you could probably walk out in the street and ask 15 people. I'm not sure they'd pick them.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So-
Absolutely. I think there is a lot to be said for getting too close to your own product
Yeah.
in this type of
Yeah.
situation. So, I'm just looking through it now. No, it's good. Like I'm not going to.
Tell me about the name. How did you come up with Digital Surfer?
It's a cool
Yeah.
name. It says what you are.
You're down the Gold Coast. You do a bit of surfing.
Yep. No. Well, I have been out with our son a lot, and he's good. And he reminds me that I'm not good. Yeah.
Kids
So-
are good at that, aren't they?
Yeah. I get out there and I try my hardest, and he absolutely gives it to me. Yeah, he's brutal in his assessment of my lack of ability, but he's very grateful that I'm
Just
out
tells
there.
you, go and sit on the beach. Get out of
Yep,
the way. Sit on
He's
the beach.
very grateful that I'm out there pushing him along. So there was a part of us when we did a rebrand and launched as Digital Surfer, 12 years ago, we were reluctant to actually use it. It was a case of kind of saying, well, what domain names are available and what business names are available via ASIC registration? And we had a short list, and that was part of the 3 or 4 short list. It was kind of almost by default, because there was only, the more we narrowed the list down to what we actually liked as a name, but then went, hang on, not available as a domain or not available on Google, or not available via ASIC registration, I should say. It got down to a short list of about 2 or 3, and we chose it. But we were hesitant because we thought, are people going to mistake us as a surfing company or a surfing brand?
Yeah.
And we didn't want to be seen that way. It's probably happened once. I think someone's
Yeah,
called us something about surfboards. I'm like, no, mate,
the
not
digital
that.
makes it clear.
Digital,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I think.
So
Yeah.
it is good. And look, it's been very marketable
Yeah, absolutely.
since. So another good decision by Renee, I'll be honest.
We've just changed from the tech panel to the business game. So
Yep.
literally we've just gone through all of that. And it is a situation where you go, okay, this is what we want.
Yeah.
But are we going to get it? And you don't.
No.
Not now.
no,
Not unless you
no.
want to pay tens of thousands of dollars for that domain. I
Yeah,
wish I hadn't
right.
been smart
crazy,
enough
yeah.
back at the beginning of the,
10 years ago.
the .com situation and hoarded those.
Can I just touch on that?
Yeah.
If we're doing an Australian business,
Yep.
and I've got so many clients who have asked this, I can't get my .com.au, but I can get the .com. Is that okay? Or how's that go with SEO? Is it?
Yeah, there are plenty of .coms that rank well in Australia. If you can get the .au, great. But if you can't, there are so many other aspects involved in optimizing a site. .coms rank here.
And
Yeah.
and then
There's a little more to it, sorry, but that's the short
Yeah.
version. Yeah, it's okay.
what happens then? So with SEO, so you, and this is going to tie back into what you've just asked. You mentioned a little bit ago when you've got a business that is sort of international. So how do you then go about doing SEO for businesses that are not just pushing out to Australia, if they're pushing out to like the US as well, or I don't know, Japan or somewhere like that? How do you go about making that happen best for the client? Is that just like a budget restriction? Is that just, and then I'm assuming having the .com in that situation is you don't want the .au.
If your audience is Australia as one audience, well, yeah, the .com.au is preferable for here. The .com is then going to be preferable for, say, the States.
Yeah.
The .co.uk in England, whatever the relevant country is. It unfortunately can be a budgetary thing.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, you would have multiple sites
Yeah.
for multiple countries.
So multiple sites are better than the one site.
You don't have to do it that way, though.
Yeah.
Probably most of us have been on websites where you see the little flag come up the
Yeah.
top somewhere, and then it
Absolutely.
can
And you
just
can change
automatically
it. Yeah.
default
Change
to
language or
whatever,
change country.
change
Yeah.
the language or the country.
Yeah.
So, look,
Depends on the industry.
yeah,
Depends on the service
Because I
provider.
guess like
the
there's
target
like
audience.
the keywords and the like
Yep.
insurance. That's the biggest killer, isn't it, in regards to paid ads and stuff like that, how much it costs, and
Yeah,
or is that
paid.
slightly changed?
Paid, ultimately, yeah, your ability to play in that space is governed by budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're able to invest. You are correct when you mentioned the whole keyword thing earlier. Different countries will search very differently.
Yeah.
Everyone's behaviour is different. Even things like, you could go back to here in Australia, some people might, I'm just going to use the chiropractic example. Some people in one state of Australia could search chiro, CHIRO, and someone else in Sydney or Melbourne could search the full term, chiropractor near me or chiropractor suburb.
Yep.
So even just doing the research, if you have a campaign here in Australia to say, hang on, here in Queensland, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is typically our search behaviour. We will shorten things. But in Sydney, for whatever reason, I don't know, and I don't know if the reason matters, the point is more so just knowing how people in certain geographical areas search.
Yeah.
People's behaviour is different. So then optimising certain pages on that site for how you know that audience is going to search. There's kind of maybe some more complexity to it than that, to be honest. But at a kind of high level, yeah, you've got to know your audience in certain areas.
So would that be better? Okay, that's 3 words into one. Would that be better than tying into where it is more beneficial having the different domain names, depending on what country you're in? Because then you can tailor the keywords within that website on that domain name for that audience there.
At a very high level,
Okay,
I guess, yeah, there's
okay, but
there's
This
more-
must be more critical for a small or medium business who wants to expand to engage your services.
yeah,
They can't do it by themselves. They don't have the
Well,
knowledge.
that's
There's
true.
no way in
Yeah,
the world
yeah.
they're going to be able to learn everything and keep up to date with the changes like you can.
Yeah. And I think that kind of comes back to what I said earlier, that if they're the business owner and they're the subject matter expert in whatever they do, them trying to learn SEO or paid or how to build an optimized website, at some level you can kind of say, well, maybe I saved a few dollars in doing that myself,
Yeah.
but did you really? What have you potentially cost yourself in lost sales? There's no way of really
Knowing.
ascertaining
Yeah.
that, really. But you could maybe say, well, hang on, I did that activity myself for 3 months, 6 months, whatever. I've had 0 leads or I've had very minimal. If I would have got someone in to do it, no guarantee, of course, of exact results you could have got. But yeah, look, and it's really hard as well. Look, because let's be fair, whilst, yes, we would love to be doing that for everyone, the reality is if you're at the real start of your journey, cash flow can be difficult. It's very true. And unless you've got funding from somewhere, sometimes a lot of startups are funded by another business that can help prop them along. So that's great. But if you don't have the money, you kind of don't have a choice. We're okay with that. I speak to plenty of people who are like that, and quite frankly, I feel for them.
Yeah. And I guess that
Particularly
comes back to what you originally said. If they can't even afford the whole package of your services or whatever agency they go to, just get that base keyword set up and stuff like that to start kicking them along.
Yeah, get a plan. If at an absolute minimum, worst case, if it's all you can afford, and even if you can't, look, it'd be worth borrowing the money off someone or maxing out your credit card.
Yeah.
Get a plan or a strategy from someone that says, okay, great, like if we were going to run this for you for 6 months, this is what we would be doing. So go away and write content around this and, maybe use this tool or go to this person who might be able to write you some content cheap. Simple things like make sure there's analytics on your site. Make sure you create yourself a Google Search Console account to be monitoring the traffic numbers. There are some simple things they can do themselves to kind of track it, because they may well then get to the end of a 3-month period and say, that just didn't work. I tried to implement, but I've got 0. So at what point in time am I going to continue to do this myself for 0? And again, they still might not be able to afford it, but then they've just got to come up with an alternate strategy. But I guess the positive there, and the point I'm trying to highlight, is if they do that for 3 months and get nothing, we can't continue to do that same thing as we know and expect a different result.
Yeah, exactly.
So something's got to change. So, and if you don't know that it's not working, you can't fix it, because you don't fix something you're not aware of.
Yeah.
So, even just knowing the
I guess it's
tools
about-
to monitor it.
got to value your time. If your time's worth $200 an hour,
Yeah.
and you are to engage your services $150 an hour, isn't that smarter to continue to do what you're doing in your business and pay someone else to look after the SEO? And it's just I'm a typical accountant, I guess. I look for the best value. Yeah, not the cheapest price, the best value.
Yeah, the best value.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it.
I value your time, your expertise. I'm paying you to get results.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people, they forget to work out what it costs them to employ themselves to do that job, where their time is better spent on something they're more, have an expertise in.
I'll give you a good example. An electrician goes out, charges $150 call out fee plus $150 an hour.
Yeah.
They could be, instead of spending their time, if I can speak properly, instead of spending their time doing SEO to look for more new customers,
Yeah.
they should be employing a SEO specialist.
Yeah, and earning that $150.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think what we've probably all unintentionally done here is segue into that point of knowing your numbers.
Yeah.
Because,
that's true. Yep.
Yeah.
This really now flows into that knowing
Yeah,
your
it
numbers
does. Yeah.
because we focus on that like you wouldn't believe. We would be having weekly conversations about what's in the funnel, what's going to drop in, and when do we foresee it will. This is in terms of your prospect list, what's in there for both web, paid search, and SEO, because it's not only then about knowing your numbers. It's about from Renee's perspective as the GM, managing the workload of everyone in each of the three sectors. But knowing your numbers is what allows you to make those future decisions. If you know your numbers with a reasonable level of predictability moving forward, you don't necessarily need to be able to pick to perfection 6 months in advance, but you've got to be looking at your funnel and saying, well, this is what's in there. These 4 deals are 50-50s, but these 4 deals are probably 90% are dropping in. Let's plan that they'll drop in the next week or two. Knowing your numbers, I guess it's so broad, isn't it? But for so many reasons, from that cash flow perspective, from that future investment perspective, from that perspective of when am I going to make the next hire? Do I wait until I've got enough work, or do I take the punt that I need to get someone in and they'll only work at 30 or 40% capacity in the first 3 months until I get them at 100% capacity? So all those decisions they're based a little bit around experience, but from what we know, they're very much based on knowing your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you can't just take a punt. I'll go and hire someone this week. Like, that'd be crazy.
What's the common mistake that you see businesses make when they actually don't prioritize their numbers?
I think cash flow becomes the big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you don't see it coming because, again, you can just get maybe too in it and not enough time on it at that higher level, that helicopter view looking down, and you don't see it. If you're just busy and you're going home mentally and physically exhausted, I think it can be very much unintentional, but you just lose sight of how important that is.
Absolutely.
You're stuck in it every day, and everyone has got life outside of their business as well. Like, life's got to go on, and it's very easy to get distracted. You come in, kind of be very reactive to what you've got to do. And if you're not on your numbers, I think that can be the biggest thing is cash flow. Or, again, at a very high level, just because turnover's increasing doesn't mean profitability is increasing.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
So you can increase turnover month on month, whether we want to call it percentages or actual dollar amounts. Let's just talk a dollar amount. Let's say our income increases $40,000 a month from May to August. But in an actual dollar amount, again, I've increased 40, but we've only made 5. Was that worth it? Maybe you're working to something bigger. I don't know. But again, it's just being mindful of that. But so looking at those numbers, kind of not just each quarter. Like, if you're looking at your numbers each quarter, each BAS period, no, you could be in for some rude shocks.
Yeah.
I don't think we even need to go down that road of making sure you're putting your BAS aside and your super and all that sort of stuff so you don't get those headaches.
This is your world.
Oh,
yeah,
no. Oh.
yeah.
I've got
Yeah,
so
not-
many stories. It's
Oh, yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, not my world. I don't
Yeah, no,
go
neither.
near it.
Very, very boring
But-
stories, by the way.
But yeah. And I think there's another really good part of knowing your numbers. So they're your internal numbers as the business owner. I'll talk about this point, I suppose, more so from the digital marketing agency perspective, but I'm sure other non-digital agencies, business owners will kind of take the point. Knowing the numbers internally within a campaign so that we can present numbers in a logical manner to your client so they can see that what they're investing in is working. So the challenge with an SEO campaign is that SEO as a service is intangible. It goes on in the background and there's skepticism and et cetera, and people don't know whether they're getting a result.
Yep.
So until they start to get more phone calls, more people filling out the form, and they start to make more money, at the beginning, they're skeptical. They're like, we don't know what you guys are doing. I can't see it. I've just got to take your word for it. I'm reluctant. I've been done over once in the past by the sharks down the road who promised me the world, delivered nothing.
Yeah.
Everyone's unfortunately had that bad SEO agency experience. And even more so since COVID, the backyard agencies drop up everywhere because all of a sudden everyone's watched a YouTube video and they think they're an expert. So knowing the numbers within some of those campaigns to be able to say, hey, hang on, even if it's at a very high level, hey, you spent $4 for the month. We know that your average invoice is $1,000. So you got 10 leads. You had the opportunity to quote 10 jobs. So that's the opportunity to quote $10,000. You invested $4. The difference is $6. Now that's very high level.
Yeah.
I know and that's not even considering what their margins are and all that sort of stuff. But even just being able to share that level of reporting with someone to say, look, we are trying to report to you based on your numbers and metrics that matter. So can you help us out by commenting each month with the feedback, like numbers that we're seeing at our end, are they working at your end? To be able to show them some sort of tangible result. So it's kind of numbers for us as the owner, but numbers within a campaign now that's very marketing related. And I know this is, this is to go out to all businesses, but hopefully other businesses can work out how they relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just like the idea that you're taking it one step further, because a lot of SEO marketing specialists will be focusing on conversion rates and not looking any further in the business. Now, whether that converts or not, what impact it does have to revenue or to profit. And that's where a lot of SEOs will stop. They won't look any further than conversion rate and say, it's been converted, it's your problem now. I guess digital surf is a little bit different. They're looking for the numbers that suit the owners.
We always say to particularly new clients, look, let's start with the end in mind. And what does success look like to you? So for a business owner could spend $5,000 a month. If they make $25,000 a month on that $5,000, they might say that's successful. And others might say, no, that's not enough margin. I want to be making $40 per month. And that's okay. Every individual owner is allowed to choose what kind of extra return they want. But knowing that and addressing that at the beginning, so I kind of say, if we have a hard conversation now, we won't have a hard conversation in 3 months. So tell us from the outset what your expectation is.
Yeah.
And let's see if we can work to it. And we might not be able to achieve it. It just might not be achievable. Or we might say, okay, you want 50 a month in a return, but to make 50, you're going to have to spend 10 instead of 5. So can you do that? And if you can't, that's okay. But we're not going to, tell you what you want to hear to get your business. And then in 2 months' time, we're having a hard chat because I've told you BS.
Yeah.
So we don't do that. It's about getting that conversation on the table on day one and saying, well, whether it be an SEO or paid campaign, it doesn't really matter. It's still the same.
Yeah.
This is the investment that's going to be needed.
It really does come down to managing expectations, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's a situation in so many businesses over so many different broad topics, like just being able to manage those expectations with clients and being upfront. This may work, maybe it won't, but you're not going to know until we try. Which brings me into now, you've brought up Renee a few times. What is it like? Because we're running out of time and I feel like I could speak to you because I'm learning a lot because, as I said at the beginning, I'm so passionate and involved with Google. I, I, what is it like, and how did you and Renee, being husband and wife, start this business, choose your roles, and stick to them? So, whilst being married, you also are husband and wife and business partners.
And I want to touch on your previous job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Tell us. Yeah.
Well, let's go previous job first then.
Is that how you met her?
No, not at all.
I was hoping for some big dish there.
No, nothing exciting there.
Now it makes it sound like I've set you up as like a magic mic dancer or something.
So pre-Digital Surfer, I had 15 years as a detective in the New South Wales Police because I grew up in Sydney. So that's where I started my journey in the police. Long time ago, 1997. I don't know where the years have gone.
Now, you were stationed, because I'm a Sydney girl.
Oh, okay.
You were stationed at Mount Druitt.
Yes. Okay. You know these places.
We both know these places, and we were both like,
right.
Wow.
That would have been interesting there.
Oh, what an eye-opener. What an eye-opener. In the first 12 months, moving from a station called Mount Druitt to another one called Cabramatta, which was kind of almost the heroin capital of Australia at the time.
Yeah.
What an eye-opener. I was this 21-year-old kid, and I thought I was very worldly, and I realised that my parents had given me a sheltered life. When I got out there
what
and
did you
saw
do
some
to
angry
deserve
people,
Mount Druitt and Cabramatta?
well, I was a little bit crazy. I asked for it.
Oh.
Yeah. I kind of thought, do I want to see action and learn, or do I just want to go and sit at Rose Bay and enjoy the lattes? And of course, 15 years later, you're really keen for Rose Bay and the lattes.
You are.
Yeah. Everyone wants to be there. So no, I did choose to go to those not so good areas, is maybe the way we'll put it.
Yeah, they're more troubled areas.
Particularly for police.
Yeah.
So tell you something which is here's something business related to the police and marketing that you might find funny knowing those areas, but generally speaking, anyone in a business sense will get this. The police is the only business in the world. They don't have to do any marketing, and all day, every day, the door swings off the hinges. Yep. You have clients coming in the door all day, every day from no marketing. They have the ultimate business model, and you don't have to pay.
You don't.
Everyone comes in, you don't have to pay. So, yep. What a...
That's how you got into Digital Surfer.
So, finished a law degree.
Yeah.
Was just about to practice. This is almost 14 years ago to the day.
And when I love Google so much.
No. Not at that stage.
Oh.
Chelsea, our eldest, is about to turn 14. She was born, great baby. Renee went back to work because she had an executive level job at the CBA and was earning $1 squillion. And I stayed home with Chelsea.
Yep.
Best year of my life. Absolute
I love
best
to hear that.
year of my life.
I'm so jealous.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. So whilst doing that, finished the law degree, finished the College of Law, was going to practice, and just said, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who's a copywriter said, I'm going to this marketing event at Surfers Paradise for the weekend. Do you want to come with me? Renee had been going to work and missing a fair bit of Chelsea, and I'll come back to that in a sec. Went along to this event with Mike, came home, and I said to Renee, I've got this new business idea. We're starting a marketing agency.
Mm-hmm.
And she had the glasses on, and the eyes went down, and she gave me that look that any husband has faced, where the glasses come down, and she said, no, you're not, mate. You're practicing law. And I thought, that didn't go as well as when I was pitching it and practicing it in the car on the way home.
In my head, it was going to be a lot different.
I thought, wow, geez, I sold that to myself in the car on the way home. But the glasses came down, and I thought, ooh, I've seen those eyes before.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of an uphill battle at the start. So I guess Renee's background, executive level, Commonwealth Bank, traveling a lot, and to really cut it short, went back to traveling after Chelsea was born.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this the justice that Renee would, but got to the stage where she would get home some nights, was about to come in the door. I'm trying to get Chelsea to sleep, and I would message her and say, stay in the car outside until Chelsea's asleep. Fast forward 3 years, second daughter Harper comes along, and Renee has that aha moment where she realised, I hardly know this 3-year-old Chelsea.
Yeah.
So a bit of a tough lesson for us to learn.
Yeah.
Had dollars in the bank, but she went, I can't get back that. So then Harper was born in 14, Xavier born in 15, never went back to the CBA. So then she played into my hands, really, because she embraced the idea of this marketing agency, and she saw how bad I was going at it.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
started it.
Yeah, I went and started. It was hopeless.
And then she's
Yeah.
gone.
She was the brains behind it. She made
Yeah,
it work.
Let me
Oh, yeah,
just watch
she
him
brought in
slowly
structure,
swing.
systems, process. Yeah, she watched me go broke and
Yeah.
said, "It's lucky we're not broke, because if you were broke, like, we'd be living in the street because you can't run
You're
a business. Yeah, you can't run a business. You can't build websites." I'm like, tough crowd. Like, what about the better for worse? You know, like. And she said, so I'll get involved. So to her credit, then she developed an immediate interest in SEO and said, you know what? SEO is the better business model, because websites only can be an up and down roller coaster. So you could earn $5,000 one month and $30,000 the next month.
Yeah.
So she said SEO was the ongoing monthly retainer, and she was interested in it, and it just flourished from there. So as we've grown, even before we grew, we kind of knew, because we were very lucky. We had some mentors very early on that were husband-wives.
Yeah.
And they said to us, we've had some pretty tough moments where we were almost about to split the sheets
Yeah.
because we couldn't separate it. We couldn't leave work at work.
Yep.
So we kind of went, you know what, we're not going down that road. And we kind of vowed that maybe at the end of the day, of each day at work, if there was a issue, it had to be resolved before we'd leave the building. We wouldn't take it home. We kind of went, you know, we're not setting this example for our kids. Life's hard enough as it is without giving yourself extra stresses that we've been warned that we could avoid. And look, we've been lucky. So in 12 years, we've probably had 2 incidents where we really did say to ourselves, like, no, I'm digging my heels in because you're wrong. So 2 incidents in 12 years is okay. And
Okay. That's brilliant.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just the clearly defined roles. We're pretty lucky, even in the building that we're in now. Renee's upstairs with the team and I'm downstairs.
Yep.
She tells me not to come upstairs because I just interrupt everyone's workflow.
That's literally
Yeah.
me here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
sit in my back cave.
Yeah. Yep.
All the other staff are upstairs.
Yeah.
And I'll go up at like 2:00 and I'm like,
Yep.
hi. Everyone's like, oh, we
They
better
all-
all just
Here we
check
go.
out for 15 minutes while
Yeah.
she's here.
Yeah. They all look out windows and I look at a car park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at nothing.
Yeah.
Oh.
She tells me it's better that I stay in there and look at the car park. Yeah. So, no, it works. But look, we've had to work hard at it though.
Yeah.
Had to work really, really hard at making sure that, you know, there's if things get a bit blurry or grey, we just have to then remind ourselves. And there's been incidents, like really important business decisions in the last year or two
Yeah.
that are kind of growth related, etc., where we have sat there and said, so once every 4 or 5 weeks to the day, depending on schedule, we'll take a day out of the office and we will go and sit somewhere and we kind of tell the team, look, don't call us, like really, really don't call us
Yeah.
unless you need to. And we just have what we call our own business development planning day. And it's just kind of primarily about numbers, but it's about kind of future decision planning. And there are times where we've kind of sat there and went in terms of the next hire, well, should it be someone in paid or SEO, or should we do this or should we do that? We have differences of opinion,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
We kind of have to say,
Oh,
well,
no. Yeah. You have to.
you know, I take your view, but have you considered this from my point of
Yeah.
view? So
And Renee wins.
typically, yes. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, she. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah.
Look, if he wasn't going to remind you, I was going to. So.
She has been known to remind me that legally I own the business, but I don't even know how to. I don't even know how to access our bank
to
account.
be fair,
so, yeah.
because, you know, just going back to a minute and a half ago, you literally said that you were rubbish at running the business and it was no good until Renee joined.
That was a long time ago. Ago. I've learned some lessons. Yeah.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
So I feel like Renee's made a good business and she's brought you along for the ride.
Takes 2 to tango. She, and this is actually something that's probably really good for people to learn as well. A lot of people who are really good at business and they're good at process and procedure, they're kind of probably best to stay in the office and run the business.
Yeah, agree.
Now, there's no way she would go and knock on a door and try and drum up new business. That is not her thing.
Yep.
You know, she says to me, you've got more front than the Opera House.
Yeah.
She says, but me, I'm staying here with the team in the aircon and we're having lattes and just doing the deliverables.
Yeah.
She said, there's no way in the world I'm getting on a stage and talking to people. So it kind of works as well. And I guess maybe if you're that husband-wife dynamic or any other dynamic, that's maybe where it might not work. If you're that same personality, you'd probably struggle. Whereas she says, no, there's no way in the world I'm going out
So two things,
doing the things.
clearly defined roles
Yeah.
and great communication.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Amazing. I wish that we had more time, to be honest, because there's so much more I want to ask you. So maybe this is something that we can bring back in the future and delve more into other things. But before we wrap up, give us one last pitch on who you are, what you do, and how do people find you?
Digital Surfer. So we're a digital marketing agency servicing Australia-wide. Our core services are websites, both WordPress, business product service-based businesses is the words I was trying to get out. E-com also, LinkedIn also, Facebook, Insta. I guess the layman's terms explanation as well of all the complexities around what we do is taking all the complexity out of it. Is if you have a business that needs to be found online because your audience are online looking for you and you need to improve your presence in Bing and or Google, primarily Google, but Bing also, don't forget that there's always opportunity there on Bing. And if you're not being found and the phone's not ringing and your website is just no one's filling out the contact form, and that's a problem for your business, well, that's the problem we solve. And in terms of, I guess, the last thing is then industry related, whether you're a vet, whether you're a dentist, whether you're a tradesman, whether you're a, cosmetic surgeon, to us, it doesn't matter. Fortunately, after 12 years and 12 on the team now, we've learnt, we have our own process and procedure. We know what works, and it kind of works regardless of industry. We're going to do, to some extent, to a very, very high extent, we're going to do the same process and procedure regardless of industry because we kind of know what works. When you get to know what Google wants, you're going to do that regardless of industry.
I wanted to ask you one final question, but I think you actually do this for other businesses. So my question was going to be, in short, what's one thing you can do to actually move the needle in your business? But I think having you guys or, someone like you to work on SEO, keywords, paid ads, getting into the depths of Google is in fact something that can move the needle in people's businesses.
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's fairly simple when you think about it, isn't it? The better you're found in Google search, the more people will call you.
Yep.
And the more people will fill out a form and you call them back. And the more you talk to people and the more you quote, the more money you make. It's kind of simple. Now, there's more to it than that, we all know, but really at its core, if you have a business that is in high demand by the general community out there, and as I used the phrase earlier, they've got a problem and you're the solution. Well, if you can be found online and the research can tell you what those volumes are around what you're offering, then yes, the more you're found, the more regularly you're found, the more the phone will ring. And that might almost even sound a bit blasé that I word it so simply, but really, sometimes we overthink things.
Yeah, 100%.
It can be that simple.
Yeah, 100%.
Know what the masses are looking for and be found for it, if that's what you do.
Build that pipeline.
Build that pipeline, yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time. Anybody that needs to reach out to you, I'm going to have all your details down here in the captions and stuff like that, so they'll be able to get directly through to you. Thank you once again.
Thank you. That was
Appreciate it.
Thank
incredible.
you. Thanks for having me. I've loved it.
Thanks so much.
To help support our continued mission to provide free, best-in-class advice from the world's most compelling business leaders, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you never miss an episode. See you next Thursday.
Thanks for tuning in to The Business Game. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected. A big thank you to our major sponsor, TrackTrack, for powering today's episode, and join us again on the next episode of The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle.